If you're anything like me, you probably know the hassle of wanting to read your manga from any device, such as a computer, a tablet, or even a smartphone like I have on the right here, and not bumping into annoying ads, being dependent on an internet connection, and also not having your manga sync up with one another in terms of the progress that you read so far. If you want a solution to all of these problems, stay tuned to find out how it's done using two completely free and open source applications. Alright, so what will you need for this project? Literally the only thing that you need is a computer. Now this can be a desktop PC or a laptop, but ideally you want something like a home server, a Raspberry Pi, or a Synology NAS if you have one of those lying around. The reason why is because we are going to be using Docker, and Docker allows you to basically run an application on any computer, any operating system. So you're going to need to install it for this to work. However, there are many tutorials on the internet, so I'm sure if you just type in whatever computer you have, whatever operating system you have, and then a tutorial on how to install Docker, you're going to find out how to do it, and then you're ready to watch this video. Trust me, it's going to be worth it. Alright, so to get started, we're going to be installing an application called Komga. So in order to get started on this and have all the commands that you need, you're going to need to head over to a site called komga.org. And this will contain all the docs when you click on Get Started. So let's head over to the installation methods and then click on Official Methods. And then click on Run with Docker, since this will run on any system. However, you can also use the Microsoft Store version or one of the other versions right here. We're going to be using Docker though because it runs on every system there is. Alright, so you can definitely go ahead and just use the regular Docker command. However, we're going to be using a Docker Compose to start this entire application. So let's do that. Alright, so we're going to be inserting this service right here called Komga into our Docker Compose file. If you've never created a Docker Compose file, I'll do that in a second. If you already have one, you probably already know how this works, and you can just add this to the list and make some changes to it. We're going to have to be changing three major things. The first thing is adding a configuration directory to contain all of our settings and configuration data for Komga. Then we're going to have to bind the folder that contains all of our manga to the data folder within the container. And last but not least, change the user ID to the ID of the user that has access to the manga. So I'll walk you through all of those things. First, we're going to copy this code snippet. You can hover on the top right and copy it right here. And then create a Docker Compose file. Once again, if you haven't done this yet, by using our favorite text editor. You can use VS Code, Vim. I'm going to be using Nano. And then pasting all of that into here. And now we're going to be making some changes. The first thing we're going to do is adding a configuration directory. So I'm going to make this very simple by literally just adding configuration directory in the folder that we're in. So do a /config. Then I'm going to be mounting, or rather binding, my manga folder to the data folder in the container. So in my case, that's this folder right here. And last but not least, you're going to have to change the user ID. And in order to do so, in order to find out what the user ID is of your user, first you want to make sure that you've opened the or that you've checked the access rights of the folder that contains your manga. So in my case, it's stored under /mnt/media. And as you can see right here, I have a folder called Manga, and that is owned by this user and this user group. And so to find out what the user ID of this user is, I type in ID followed by the name of the user. And that is then 1024. So we're going to map this ID to the internal ID in the container. So what we're going to be doing is changing this right here to 1024. And now we're going to also going to be removing the entire environment section, since we don't really have any customizations that we're going to be applying to this container. Okay, so that takes care of that. So now what we can do is simply save this file and run docker compose up-d. Alright, and as you can see, it's already complaining that I can't find the bind source path. And so we can simply resolve this by typing in make directory this. And so what you need to make sure is that this directory right here has to exist before you actually try to run docker compose up. So now that it's been created, what we can do is once again run docker compose up-d, and now the container has started. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so let's check out the Komga site on our server. In order to do so, what we're gonna have to do is figure out our IP address first. You probably already know this. If you don't, it's gonna be a little bit different from each system to the next. However, in my case, I'm just going to be running IPA. This should work on Linux and Mac OS. And down here, I can see the IP address. So once I have this IP address, all I have to do is enter it and add this :25600 to it. So I'm going to be typing that into my browser. And there you have the Komga startup screen. Alright, so let's go ahead and create an account. You really don't have to use your real email for this. You can just make one up. However, I do recommend using an email so that you can recover your account. However, I'm just going to be using something like this, example at example.com, for the sake of this video. And just create a password. You can also hit remember me and then create a user account. Okay, so now the first thing that you do is you add a library. And I'm going to be calling this Manga. Add a root folder, which in our case is data, since this is the folder that we've mapped it to. And now all your different series should appear right here. I'm going to choose that folder, click on next. Make sure to select this option right here, empty trash automatically after every scan on startup, and here you can also change the interval. So I'm going to be leaving this at 6 hours. That seems fine to me. And continue. So now let's add this library, and as you can see, some of these start showing and it'll start scanning the library itself. Right here you can see this, it's sort of like loading. You can also just force this by just selecting it and clicking on scan library files deep, and it will start doing that for you at any time that you want. Okay, so the first series, Attack on Titan, has been added. So let's take a look at what that looks like when you click on it. So here you can see all your volumes, chapters, whatever you have. And if we click on the first volume right here, you can see that it shows up, and you can, scroll through the pages. So that's pretty cool on the web version. So I've gone ahead and opened Komga on my phone right here, as you can see. And you can really tell that this is optimized for all types of different devices, whether you have a tablet, a phone, or a computer. You can really enjoy your manga from anywhere. And it also syncs up beautifully like this because it all runs over one website, over one account. So if I go ahead and read this, it'll just start off where I last picked it up from. Alright, so when you're at home and you want to read manga from any device, obviously Komga is a great option. Now, the one exception to this is when you're outside of your home network, you might not have access to the server that Komga is running on, and so you won't be able to access it. And even if you use a VPN, once you're, let's say, for example, on an extended train ride or an airplane ride where you don't have access to the Wi-Fi, in that case, you might need an offline solution. And this is where a third-party app called Mihon comes in. Mihon is a continuation of the beloved Tachiyomi app, which unfortunately got discontinued, or rather isn't being actively developed. And so this app is completely open source and free, and allows you to easily connect to Komga and download your manga for offline usage. And so what you're going to do is head over to github.com/Mihon-app/Mihon/releases. So enter that into your URL field on your mobile browser, and then go down to this right here, this APK, and download it. So once it's downloaded, you want to open it and install the app right here, and then open it again. All right, so let's go ahead and set up Mihon. So we're gonna be changing some default settings and then adding our server. I'm going to be selecting the dark mode right here, hitting next, and then select a folder where we can store our manga. So I actually already have one created here, so I'm just going to be using this folder. If you don't have one, create a folder called Manga, and then connect it to Mihon. Then you have to grant a ton of permissions, so walk through, just go through these, and give Mihon all the permissions that it needs. Then hit next, and then click on get started. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is add the plugin to. Alright, so let's consult the official docs on how to install this extension for Mihon. And so what you do is search for Mihon Komga extension, click on this link right here, and it will then refer to the Kayushi repository of extensions, which you can click on extensions, and then search for Komga. And then you'll see this extension right here, the official Komga extension. Click on download, trust it and download it, and then open the extension, and then you're going to be installing this extension like you would any other app. Okay, so now that it's installed, we can check Mihon. And we can see that it's been added, so we're going to go ahead and trust it. And then click on this cogwheel right here to configure it. Alright, so in my case, on this version of Mihon, Komga has already been added, the extension for Komga, and so all I have to do is head over to Browse, and then go on Extensions, and hit Trust right here. And then you have, you can connect up to 3 different servers, although you'll likely just need one. So what I'm going to do is just unselect these 2. And so now I only have 1 server to worry about. Okay, so now if you go back to sources, you'll see Komga right here. And then all that you have to do is basically set this up by going to settings, and then you can enter the server address right here. So that's going to be HTTP, then followed by your IP address, and then the port, which I believe is 25600. You can click OK, then enter your user's email. So in my case, that's example. At example.com. And finally enter your password. There you go. And now, what you have to do is restart Mihon to apply these settings. So you can go back and then, close out of this. And now once you've reopened Mihon, if you go on sources, you should see Komga. And if you click on Komga, you should now have all of your different manga that you've added. So I can now also just view the manga from here and just start, reading maybe from the first one. I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, so what you need to do to download it is just literally click the download button right here. You can either download the entire series or just download volume 1. And it'll add it to your library and download it. Okay, so I've gone ahead and disconnected to the internet just to demonstrate that this offline mode works. So what you do is just click on the series in your library. So make sure you have library selected down here. Click on the series, scroll down to whichever volume or volumes you've downloaded, and then click on that, and it'll load in perfectly right here. If you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing would be greatly appreciated. Any of these will help the growth of the channel. Thank you, and until next time.